Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, from chapter 17, the divisions of faith, text number 14. Deva Dvija Guru Pragya Ujjanam Suchamarjanam Brahmacharyam Ahimsacha Shariram Tapa Uchate Deva Dvija Guru Pragya Ujjanam Suchamarjanam Brahmacharyam Ahimsacha Shariram Tapa Uchate Deva Dvija Guru Pragya Ujjanam Suchamarjanam Brahmacharyam Ahimsacha Shariram Tapa Uchate. Of the Supreme Lord, Dvija, the Brahmanas, Guru, the spiritual master, Pragya, and worshipable personalities, Pujanam, worship, Sucham, cleanliness, Arjavam, simplicity, Brahmacharyam, celibacy, Ahimsa, non-violence, Cha, also, Sariram, pertaining to the body, Tapaha, austerity, Uchate, is said to be. Austerity of the body consists in worship of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmanas, the spiritual master, and superiors like the father and mother, and in cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence. Purport. The Supreme Godhead here explains the different kinds of austerity and penance. First, he explains the austerities and penances practiced by the body. One should offer or learn to offer respect to God or to the demigods, the perfect, qualified brahmanas and the spiritual master, and superiors like father, mother, or any other person who is conversant with Vedic knowledge. These should be given proper respect. One should practice cleansing oneself externally and internally, and he should learn to become completely simple in behavior. He should not do anything which is not sanctioned by the scriptural injunctions. He should not indulge in sex outside of married life, for sex is sanctioned in the scripture only in marriage, not otherwise. This is called celibacy. These are penances and austerities as far as the body is concerned. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Kanana Salakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaisnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Visabhanya Sutadevi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyacha Kripasindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasani Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Austerity of the body is described. So, austerity of the body is referring to acting in a prescribed way. And internally, maybe the heart may be in a particular condition, and that is not governed by this austerity, because one cannot dictate the condition of the heart through austerity. One cannot prescribe, now I must feel ecstatic. It's if only it was so simple. But externally, we can act in particular ways, and that is what is being described when we speak about austerity of the body. So first of all, we worship the Supreme Lord. This morning, that we discussed that verse, Kechit Kevalaya Bhaktya Vasudev Parayana, to only engage in the worship of Vasudev, the son of Vasudev, or Krishna, and to be completely absorbed, Parayana, in this. So, or Anyabilasita Sunyam, to not take up any other activity. So that is our first activity, the Supreme Lord. It is interesting because in the verse it is said Deva Dvija Guru Pragya. So one might say Deva means to worship the demigods. One must worship the demigods. But Srila Prabhupada is quite precise. No, Deva means Deva Deva. It means the Lord of all the Devas. It is the one Lord. So that is not a particular twist. Scholars might argue and might say, well, what is the evidence that this word is correctly translated? We might say, look at the verse Vyasayatmika Buddhi Reka Kuranandana. The verse where it said, only one. It is not Bahusaka, no, just one purpose. So, in this one purpose, we are worshipping the Supreme Lord. Then, the Supreme Lord as He's represented in this world. The Brahmanas are mentioned. First the Brahmanas are mentioned and then the spiritual masters, because the Brahmanas are everywhere in society, at least in a healthy society, a Vedic society. Maybe not in our society nowadays, but in a normal society, the Brahmanas are everywhere. Therefore, that worship, wherever the Brahmanas are, that worship must be there, because the Brahmanas are the representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Through their mouth, they speak transcendental knowledge. They can also accept offerings on behalf of the Supreme Lord. Of course, it is said the duty of the Brahmana is yajan, patan, dana pratigaha. Or the Brahmana is engaging in deity worship and also engaging others in worshipping the deity. The Brahmana is studying scriptures, is teaching scriptures, he is receiving in charity and also distributing that charity to where it is appropriately needed. And in this way, the Brahman remains detached and an agent of the Lord. He has no personal agenda. His agenda is to simply act according to the injunctions of revealed scripture, which means the injunctions of the Supreme Lord. So the Brahmanas are the representatives of the Supreme Lord. The spiritual master. Next, we are worshipping the spiritual master. Worship of the spiritual master is central to our life. Yet, to come in contact with a bona fide spiritual master is a rare occasion. It's not that one finds a spiritual master here, there, and everywhere. Spiritual masters are rare. Manushyanam sahasresu kaschit yatati siddhaye yatatamma pisidanam kaschimam vatitattvataha. Out of many thousands among men, hardly one may endeavor for perfection. Out of those who endeavor for perfection, hardly one may know me in truth. So in this way, we can see that this caliber of personalities is not easily encountered. Vande Gurun Isa Bhaktam Isa Avatarakam. There is in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the opening words are Vande Gurun. It is plural, not one guru, but plural. And it is explained that Guru is manifesting in various ways. Diksha Gurus are mentioned, Siksha Gurus are mentioned, Chaitya Guru is mentioned, for initiating spiritual masters, instructing spiritual masters that are seated within the heart and enlightening us from within. Krishna as the super soul. Sometimes the spiritual master is described to be the external manifestation of the super soul. So in this way, we are engaging in worship of the spiritual master. And then there are superiors mentioned, like the father and the mother, and we're also worshipping them. So as I said, these are all activities that are relating to our external behavior. They are not relating to the state of our heart. And therefore, they're known as austerities of the body. It's not that only the body is involved, obviously. I mean, when we're worshipping the spiritual master, it's not just the body that's involved. It's the mind that is involved. It is speech that is involved. We are getting also austerities of the mind, austerities of speech. Now, what is the meaning of this? Is that we're acting according to prescribed duty. It is said, first of all, the relationship with the spiritual master is one that is based on duty. And there is an element of fear. Because never ever before has such authority been granted to anyone. Not even to one's parents. You can disobey your parents, you can rebel, right? And you will not burn, right, in hell. But if you rebel against the spiritual master, then there is no hope. Of course, what rebelling against the spiritual master means should not be misunderstood. There are different natures. Some are fiery. Jagadananda Pandit had a fiery nature. He would disagree with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was acting as the spiritual master of his followers. Jagadananda would sometimes rebel, like on that occasion when he had brought scented oil for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Oh, scented oil, what will I do with scented oil? I'm a sannyasi. How can I use scented oil?" So it's like, we could use it very nicely by taking it to the temple of Lord Jagannath and burn it in the lamps of Lord Jagannath, and in that way we could use the oil in the service of the Lord. So Lord Chaitanya thought he found a good solution. Jagadananda Pandit did not respond. Jagadananda Pandit simply took the oil and just went out to the courtyard of the house and smashed it on the ground. And it made a lot of noise, so lots of people came to see what had happened, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also came to see what happened and called out, "What happened? What happened?" And Jagadananda Pandit said, "Nothing happened. Nothing happened. There was no oil." That was it. And then he went home to fast. And he fasted until Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eventually had to think of a trick. The trick was like, now that Jagadananda is fasting, who will cook for me? So eventually he got Jagadananda to cook for him, and then after Lord Chaitanya ate, then Lord Chaitanya sent the remnants to Jagadananda. So when he got personal remnants of the Lord, what could he do? He had to take, so he took. And still, Jagadananda is considered a most dedicated follower. So it has to be understood what it means to be a dedicated follower. Natures are there. Some are fiery, some are very submissive. That mood will always be there amongst Vaishnavas. That will never change. The essence is the dedication. Worship of the spiritual master goes beyond offering a flower, offering some incense. It goes really beyond beyond one's own worship, to the point of pleasing the spiritual master. The other day, I was thinking, chant 64 rounds, and then I was thinking, that would be nice, but wouldn't it be nicer
to make 64 devotees. Yeah? It's like, what would be a nicer offering, 64 rounds or 64 devotees? Of course, one doesn't exclude the other necessarily. One may chant 64 rounds and then make 64 devotees. But sometimes maybe not 64 rounds. Sometimes maybe somehow or other spreading Krishna consciousness. So what does it mean? Worship of the spiritual master. And Srila Prabhupada received the order of his spiritual master to preach in the English language. Well, he could have, in those days, that was understood to preach to the English-speaking world. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta already had sent several disciples to the Western world, so okay, it meant preach to the Western world. Fine, but Prabhupada took it quite far. He could have filled in that instruction and done some preaching in the Western world. But Prabhupada filled that in to the maximum of the order. I mean, he extended it not only in terms of language to English to 70 languages or so, at least in which his books were translated. He also expanded it by traveling the globe. He expanded it to ultimately take it that his mission was to deliver the entire world. So simply based on the words preach in the English language. So in a similar spirit, one can, where does it begin and where does it end? Worship the spiritual master. Of course, that worship is central of all worship. We worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is a fact, that Krishna is the original spiritual master. Dharmam tu saksat bhagavat pranitam. That all transcendental knowledge begins with Krishna. That's, one cannot manufacture anything. It is what the spiritual master gives. He gives Krishna Upadesh. It is through Krishna Upadesh that the spiritual master can deliver others. But the spiritual master is particularly accessible, and the spiritual master is partial, whereas Krishna is impartial. Krishna is equally disposed to all living beings. Brahmani Gavini Hastini Pandita Samadarshinaha. Whether it is the Brahmana, the dog eater, or the dog, he is equipoised to all, impartial. But the spiritual master is partial. He decides, no, I want to give this one the mercy. There is a distinction, because Krishna is omniscient. Krishna is omniscient. The spiritual master is not omniscient. Once Srila Prabhupada made that point. He said in public, he said that Krishna is your best friend. A devotee said, no, Srila Prabhupada, no, you are our best friend. And Prabhupada said, no, Krishna is your best friend. No, Srila Prabhupada, you are our best friend. Prabhupada said, no, Krishna is your best friend because I may disappoint you. It's just like, no, you will never disappoint us, Srila Prabhupada. No, I may disappoint you because Krishna is omniscient. He knows everything. But I'm not omniscient, so I may disappoint you. To be omniscient, to know everything and anything, that only the Supreme Lord is. But the spiritual master naturally will meet people that come on his path, and he says, yes, this one will get the mercy, somehow or other. And we can see how different devotees crossed crossed the path of Srila Prabhupada. We may remember that Srila Prabhupada came on the Jaladuta. Now it is being commemorated. Prabhupada left on the 13th. It was Friday the 13th, actually. I think something to note. His mission to preach Krishna consciousness around the world started on Friday the 13th. Now, what does that mean? It could either mean that Friday the 13th is a lucky day for our movement, or it can mean that Friday the 13th is an unlucky day, that Prabhupada just made it lucky by his presence. Whatever may be, Friday the 13th it was. Anyway, after Prabhupada landed in America and came off the ship, a few hours later, two personalities boarded the ship. They were Keith and Howard, who went to India to find a guru. Somehow or other, they got close. Not so much by going to India, but by being on the Jaladuta, because they stayed in the same cabin where Prabhupada stayed. So there, whatever dust that they got must have benedicted them tremendously. Anyhow, subsequently, they came to Calcutta, but never found a guru. So anyway, they bought some souvenirs, which they kept. And later, when Howard met that Swami from India, and he saw Prabhupada in the street, and he said, "Oh, are you from India?" And Prabhupada said, "Yes, and you?" Then Howard said, "No, but I've been in India." And so it began, those early days. And later, Hayagriva and Kirtanananda, how close had destiny brought them. Brahmananda also like that. Somehow or other, he'd gotten a job on a ship, and he also, in 1964, went to to India, and he really liked India, and since then he got a lungi, and he got the sandals, and he even learned to smoke cigarettes and bidis in the Suchi way, like they do in India. So it is described in his biography. What to do? In the age of Kali, the entire world is influenced by ignorance. And therefore, what do we know about what is right, what is not right? Even when we think we do, we don't. It is in front of the spiritual master, and in the association of the spiritual master, that we finally, that our darkened eyes are opened, and that we finally understand what is right and what is wrong, and even things that we took for granted now become clear, and gradually. Maharaj Pariksit, he had taken his birth in a very exalted family, the grandson of the Pandavas. What can we expect from Maharaj Pariksit, other than that he had a great education? As a king, as a prince, we understand that the best of teachers were training him. Maharaj Pariksit obviously had extensive learning in scriptures. Still, when we study Srimad Bhagavatam, we see that Maharaj Pariksit was asking so many questions. So many questions about the creation and things like that, as if he didn't know. Just like nowadays, we're all conversant with modern theories if you know the evolution theory, everyone could give some sort of explanation of the evolution theory. In the same way, in those days, everyone could give every educated person could give an explanation of the creation. So, do you really think that Maharaj Pariksit didn't know? Do you think he didn't know? And then, why did he ask all these questions about the creation? You think that he didn't have any education from a royal family? That wasn't the reason. It is said that Maharaj Pariksit was asking all these questions for the sake of strictness, to reconfirm that all his conceptions that he had in his mind were correct. So many conceptions are there, and we carry them with us for years, and sometimes misconceptions, and they've been in our minds for forever. And we've lived with them for so long, we're so familiar with our own misconceptions, we're convinced this is true. I mean, I've known this since I was 6 years old. And now, almost 60 years later, now, I mean, you're going to tell me that this is not true? I've lived with this truth for 60 years. It was not confirmed. Oh, not confirmed. Not confirmed by Guru Sadhu Shastra. So the spiritual master gradually makes everything clear. Srila Prabhupada on one point says that surrender means to surrender to all the little things, and all the small things, not just a big surrender. I'm going to surrender. Krishna. Yes, one moment. Krishna, I'm offering you my life. Okay, now all the little things, please. Like that, we can make a very dramatic announcement, but the reality is, it's the little things where we don't surrender. Can't be fanatic about this. It's just a small thing. Come on, it's like, what's wrong with this finger anyway? Okay, you don't touch your beads, but it just makes great tilak, It's the best way to get it straight, somehow or other. The other fingers, this one, not allowed. Like that, the little things. So therefore, worship of the spiritual master goes beyond offering flowers or incense. It is every step of the way. It is in every action that we worship the spiritual master. Every action of our life is an action of worship. Worship of the Brahmanas is there. Still, it may be on a different level than the spiritual master, because different Brahmanas may themselves be on different levels of surrender. Some Brahmanas may be completely surrendered to the scriptures, other Brahmanas slightly less. There are gradations. We will be respectful to all. We will always offer them all respect and so on. But we become the property of our spiritual master. Whatever he desires, that will govern us. Even beyond our parents. Yes, aren't we the property of our parents? Did they not give us birth in this world? Where would we be without them? Are we not indebted? In the West, we may walk away and not care at all. But in traditional India, the debt to the parents has been taken very seriously and socially very much ingrained upon the consciousness of a child. What will you do? Your parents. Of course, the greatest thing we can do for our parents is to become a pure devotee. That is the very greatest thing. Because in that way, if we go back to Godhead, our parents will also go. So we can spend all our time now to make money, right? Preferably in a rich country, lots of, and then send it back home. But maybe in the process of making all that money, we become corrupted, and as a result, we will not go back to Godhead. And then our parents have a comfortable old age, but after that, they leave this body and they may not go back to Godhead. So let's put our priorities. The topmost thing to do is devotional service. The 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam says, Devarsa buddhaktininam pitrinam nakin karoniyam nivisarajam sarvatmanam yasaranam saranyam kato mukundam paritya kartam. This is the verse which deals with debts, and it's saying that all debts, the debts to, okay, I have to do the verse again, the devas, the rishis, the Buddhas, the forefathers, the Apta, the children, the parents, all the debts that we may owe because we have had advantage of the facilities offered by others. All these debts are now paid. We are full of karmic debts. The demigods supply us with ample of air, water, our necessities in life. We are indebted. Our parents supply us with our needs. We are indebted. Our teachers, cows supply milk. We are indebted. A long, long list of debts. All these debts are now written off, automatically paid if we serve Krishna. So that's something to consider. That's really something to consider. So worship of in this whole list of worship that is given, one must understand the priority. And when there's conflict arising between the various objectives here, now who shall I serve? My spiritual master or my parents? Srila Prabhupada had once one disciple from Navadvip. His name was Shamla. And Shamla, Srila Prabhupada sent him to Calcutta. So he left the Holy Dham, which is difficult when you are from the Holy Dham, to go to Calcutta. And there in Calcutta, he was collecting together with Gargamuni, who was at the time the president of the Calcutta temple. And of course Brahmananda was also often there. So Shamla, at one point, he was still quite new when he received news that his father had died, and the family really wanted him to come home, so he said, I have to go. Gargamuni said, no, let's ask Prabhupada. So they asked Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, don't go. So then he didn't go, which is a big thing in India. He didn't go. Anyway, Shamla was in Calcutta continuing that service. Later, many years later, Shamla wound up in South Africa, and then a few years ago he became ill, and he contracted at one point a brain tumor. And this brain tumor, it affected him obviously, and what happened is he forgot, virtually speaking, he forgot many things. He forgot his whole life practically. He forgot everything except Prabhupada. And therefore all he was doing the whole day was just telling his memories of Prabhupada. Everything else was gone. from morning till night, whenever you would meet him, he go, Sham. And the other side that was still in him was, I am from Navadvip. And then he was like the host from Navadvip, that culture, that Vaishnav culture. And you know, when I came to his house, he'd go, a Vaishnava has graced my home, right? I am so fortunate. And then he would come and say, yes, Prabhupada liked rasgullas. Yes. He would send me in Calcutta to go and get rasgullas. Yes, Prabhupada liked sweets. He would tell it 100 times a day, hundreds of times a day. And it was an amazing tumor, because it just took away everything and only left him with his Prabhupada memories, and with the memory he was from Navadvip. I mean, what a departure, really. I mean, Krishna arranged it such an amazing way. Yes. And it was really clear. All these years, Shamlal had collected money. Incredible amounts over the years, from that time that Prabhupada sent him to Kolkata, throughout the years, all over the world. A very big collector. But one thing we know, he didn't keep anything for himself. Right? First of all, it showed he lived very simple, and second of all, there were no reactions, nothing was on his mind. There was no cloud over his consciousness from all the sinful activities he had done. No. He simply had been a loyal servant of his spiritual master. And therefore, at the end of his life, he could just act in that way. Remember, just remember his spiritual master, and in that way, be ready to go back to Godhead. Anyway, so I spoke a little bit about this list of, I explained austerity of the body because it governs our external behavior, and I explained there's a list: Supreme Lord, the Brahmanas, the spiritual master, and superiors like the father and the mother. And I established a hierarchy. And when there's a conflict between the interest of both, then we should take the higher authority, the spiritual master. And Shamlal did that, and ended his life in great success. Then some other principles of austerity of the body are mentioned: cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence. Cleanliness is referring to internal cleanliness and external cleanliness. Simplicity, elsewhere, Srila Prabhupada is explaining simplicity in an interesting way. He is equating simplicity with honesty, which I kind of like, because it's true that if we are very honest, life becomes very simple. And the more we get caught up in a life of pretense, in a life of false impressions, in a life of lies, whether the lie is spoken or whether the lie is implied by our behavior. For example, pretending is also a way of lying. I act as if I'm very rich, although I come from a very rich background, although I never really said it in those words. In this way, pretense is also a lie. And one creates such a network of lies. And duplicity is a condemned quality. It is said, this is kutinati. Kutinati, and kutinati means a business mentality. It means that we're always thinking, what am I getting out of the situation? What recognition will I get? What profit will I get? That we are thinking simply of how to take advantage of the situation. Kutinati. Therefore, business mentality and pretending are both counted as kutinati, the same thing. Simplicity means no, I'm taking the situation as it is. I am what I am. I am, and that means, see, as soon as we get honest, the next step is we'll become humble. Because when we're honest, we have to admit we're not so great. When we're honest, we have to admit that we have faults. When we're honest, that we're still, after so many years in devotional service, still not so exalted. So honesty, therefore, the next step is automatically humility. So in this way, this arjavam is a very nice quality. The next one on the list here is celibacy, and that is also interesting because Srila Prabhupada takes the most broad definition of celibacy here, brahmacharya. He says that he should not indulge in sex outside of married life, for sex is sanctioned in the scriptures only in marriage, not otherwise. This is called celibacy. So, like that. Grihastha brahmachari. That was Prabhupada's invention. One never heard of that. But kamusmi bharatar sabha. Dharma viruddha bhuktisu kamusmi bharatar sabha. Sexual activity according to religious principles that is authorized by Krishna. That is completely free from the entanglement in sexual activities, from the network that sexuality can create, where one becomes bound and more bound. These are known as maitunya agara, or the shackles of sex life. It's like sometimes said that the material world is a jail. It's a jail, and that Durga Devi is the guard of that jail. So I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, yes, and our bodies are the cells in which we are locked. In that jail, we are locked in the cell of our body, and it is the bars in the cell that's sex life, because that keeps us in the cell. It's that sex life that keeps us in the cell of these bodies. In that way we stay in the jail. Maitunya agara, the chains of sex life. So the shackles of illicit sex life, because dharma viruddha bhuttesu kamasmi bharatar seva, sex life according to religious principles has no binding effect. It is not binding us to birth and death. It is no impediment to developing one's love for Krishna. Such sexual activity is not barring us in spiritual life. It is not barring us from reaching our love for Krishna. So we see in the movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that there were sannyasis, and with sannyasis Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very strict. The example is Chota Haridas. Chota Haridas was apparently his offense was not so great, but he was a little, maybe spending some time alone, talking alone to a lady. She was elderly. Still, she was a Vaishnavi. Still, Mahaprabhu was strict with him, very strict. But when Shivananda Sain came and showed his newborn son, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased. And the child was crawling and took the lotus foot of the Lord, and then took the lotus toe of the Lord in his mouth, and became Kavi Karnapur. At the age of 5, that child wrote amazing poetry about Krishna. Yes. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was, and Shivananda Sain was one of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's most prominent devotees, filled with love of God. No question, from second-class citizen. Sorry, Grihastas, we tolerate you in this movement. Second-class pariahs, what can we do? Lusty dogs, but anyway, you are tolerated. No, that's not what we see in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We have seen that mood sometimes amongst Vaishnavas who did not fully absorb the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But it is amazing. It is amazing in this movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this is highlighted here by Srila Prabhupada, who is extending the definition of brahmacharya. We should take note of it, and that's why I'm highlighting it, because it is unique. It is unique. There may be so many explanations of the Gita, but that explanation will not be there. But we have to understand it in its full impact, how actually there is no reaction to sexual activity according to religious principles. That is glorious. Of course, that meant the Garbhadana Sanskara. That meant that a couple would ask blessings, and after receiving the blessings to conceive a child, would perform austerity on Srila Prabhupada's instruction, chanting 50 rounds, and then engaging in sexual activities according to an auspicious time, which one can read about in the Manu Samhita. And then between the 6th and the 16th day of the monthly cycle of the female. All these kind of things. But if it is done so, then we can advance very nicely. So that is how this movement is designed. A movement which is made for people of our time. Not an artificial movement. Not a movement with artificial standards. A movement of extreme renunciation. A realistic movement. A movement that fits in the world. Of course, the first time I heard about the 4 regulative principles and I heard about no illicit sex, it seemed bizarre to me, actually, to be honest. I thought that this was extreme. And I think that if one would present this as, this is the program for the world, for humanity at large, that some people would say, for humanity at large? It looks more like for a minority, for a small group of people that can do it. But we'll say again, no, for humanity at large. And they'll say, but do you really think that humanity at large can follow this? And then, finally we will say, whether humanity at large can follow this, or whether humanity at large, cannot follow this. That's not the point. The point is that this is their only chance. Take it or leave it. Right? That's it. It's the chance. That alone with chanting 16 rounds, it's our only chance. Take it or leave it. And that's for the whole world. Take it or leave it. Even for the members in this movement, There's the story of the boy on the Nirjal fast day. Publicly was not drinking water, but when he took his bath in the river, he was drinking underwater. So, if we have any underwater drinkers in terms of celibacy, then what can I say? Take it or leave it. It's our only chance. Somehow or other, this life, how it came, don't ask me. One thing is for sure, it didn't come due to our activities, but somehow or other, this life, this opportunity came. Now it's here. And say, yeah, but maybe I didn't really want it now. I mean, can't I get it later in my next life? Can I just enjoy a little and then in the next life go back? No, sorry, it's this life. What to do? Oh gosh, you mean this life I have to give up enjoying? Yes, the material energy at least. Yeah. I'm really sorry. It's sorry to break the news. It's kind of, it's hard. It's cruel. It's not fair. I know, but it's the way the cookie crumbles. That saying, it's the way the cookie crumbles, basically means it is what it is. There's nothing's going to change destiny. It is what it is. So, therefore, we should take advantage. So the Bhagavad Gita gives us a systematic approach. It doesn't just say, surrender your life to Krishna. The Bhagavad Gita says, no, here are the austerities of the body. Follow those. And then you finish with that. Oh, here's austerity of speech. Tomorrow, follow that. And like this, Bhagavad Gita gives us a systematic way to conduct ourselves. And then that will give us the strength to surrender completely. As we surrender in the small ways, then we can surrender in the big way. I'll end now. Any questions, any comments? Please.
Thank you very much for class. We hear sometimes Vanaprasthas. Thank you, Maharaj. We hear sometimes Vanaprasthas go to the forest and practice austerities for the body. They reduce their eating, bathing in cold water. Why Krishna is not mentioning those in this verse particularly, or what level he's speaking to Arjuna? Can you please elaborate?
The austerity of the body that is mentioned here is the list is limited. It's a short list. I mean, the list could also, if we would ourselves go through the Bhagavad Gita again, we could add many things to this list, like you mentioned Varna Ashram, Vanaprastha in particular. But all the four Varnas, we can add, all the ashrams we can add as all parts of the austerity of the body. Yagyadanas tapaschayava, like engaging in sacrifice, engaging in charity, all these things we can add to this list if we would want to. So we could make the list longer. Why Krishna has particularly taken these points over others, we can guess. And some are obviously
there, very, very essential. The spiritual master, worship of the Supreme Lord, the spiritual master. Then the brahmanas. It's like, this is like the foundation. The foundation. Father and mother, you know, it's like so close to us. So in this way, Krishna chose a few of the most essential elements. And then when he spoke about cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence, okay, again, these are also the practically the 4 pillars of Dharma in cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence that we are finding here. So in that way, we can see Krishna went to the essence here. But that's with my limited understanding, because Krishna has unlimited intelligence, so ultimately I don't know why he chose these ones.
So as you pointed out, those 4 last principles are 4 regular principles.
Yeah.
So were they have they been in our whole sampradaya, or were they just brought out?
The 4 regulative principles are found particularly spelled out in the Bhagavatam, in that point where Kali is entering into the kingdom of Maharaj Pariksit. Then it is stated that the 4 pillars of Adharma, which are Panam, Chutam, Striyam, and Sunam, or the 4 illicit activities, meat, and so on. And of course Kali, right, could reside where those activities are going on, and they were not going on at the time, and so on. So it is pointed out that wherever that in order to become free from the grip of Kali, one must follow these principles. If one is not following these principles, one is influenced by Kali. And Kali is just going to then possess us. In the very short, in the Mahabharata, is a reference of King Nala, who at one point, due to circumstance, became possessed by Kali. And as a result, he was thinking in foolish ways, and he was convinced that these were his own thoughts, and yet they were thoughts induced by Kali. So one who is possessed by Kali is thinking he's making his own decisions, and actually is haunted and controlled by Kali. So the only way to become free from the influence of Kali is by following these principles. So that's the first thing. Were they always followed? Yes. I mean, these are the 4 principles of Adharma. You may find them, for example, elaborately described in the books of our acharyas, Chaitanya Mangal, Lochandas Thakur, for example, has a whole passage which elaborates on these pillars of Dharma as essential. So it's not like that Srila Prabhupada suddenly phrased 4 principles and go like, where did it come from? The only thing that Srila Prabhupada did was he started to introduce
that they were formally spoken at the time of initiation. Because prior to that, it was never like formally vowed. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would sort of explain in his preaching what the standard was, how many rounds and what spiritual standards were to be followed, and then give initiation. But he did not ask, so what are the 4 regulative principles, and then, and so on, and how many rounds. No, that Prabhupada did, he formalized the vows. And of course, that was very necessary, because Prabhupada for the first time took it all to the international world, and the international world had no connection with principles of Dharma. Whereas in India, and especially in the India of the previous century, they were very much ingrained in society as a whole. Much more. And of course, even when we first came to India, it was a very different India than India today. Very different. It's I came 45 years ago, and it was another India, I tell you. Another Vrindavan, for that matters.